You're listening to Do By Friday, the weekly challenge podcast with Merlin Mann, Alex Cox, and Max Temkin. This week's challenge, throw something away.
I got a 65-inch TV, which is common. I didn't understand what I was getting into, and of course I'm too physically weak. I lack the upper body strength to manipulate this television in any way. I can't take it out of the box or lift it. So I had my contractors come over, and they put the bracket on. They lift the TV up, and I was there. We've had it up and down a few times trying to get everything connected and whatever. And yesterday we were some like HDMI cable went bad, and we had to replace the cable. And they put the TV on. They put it on. And I'm, standing back because I'm too weak to lift this TV. I'm useless with my scrawny little arms. And these just huge guys are lifting the TV up, and I can see that the TV is connected to my Sonos because I've gone all in on a Sonos based lifestyle, and they've crushed the optical cable that connects the TV to the Sonos. And a little piece of the optical cable, the little...
This is too soon for you to discuss?
It's very traumatic. Do you know the little nubbin that comes out of the optical audio cable? The little snout?
I know the nubbin.
The little snout, it's snapped off in the TV, in the receptacle in the TV. And I exclaimed, "Oh no, my optical cable." And and sure enough, I could not get it to work, and so the contractors are currently at my place, taking lifting the TV up and moving it around, and I got them at tweezers, and we were sort of fishing around in there with a flashlight trying to extract the nubbin from the TV. But it's possible I'm going to have to RMA the entire 65-inch wire cutter recommended television because I snapped the snout of the optical cable, and I want to tell you, this is about as... These are the dramatic stakes of a white person in America. I mean, this is it. I mean, what else could happen to you that is worse than this?
I don't know. I honestly don't know what to say. Have you even watched the TV? Have you had it on yet?
I have. We watched the debate at my place, and it mostly worked. We streamed CNN, and it mostly worked.
But you just had it on the ground like an animal?
No, it was up. Everything was working. It was just for complicated reasons that I won't go into. We had to there's cabling that runs through the wall because I'm not an animal and I don't have cables out. And one of these cables had to get replaced, which necessitated the whole thing coming down, at which point the optical cable was crushed. It's like every time you manipulate this fragile... birds. It's like this whole thing it's like a sparrow. It just has these hollow little bones, and you could snap it at any time.
Oh, God.
Hollow bones. Oh my God! And the thing is, we're like little dinosaur people. We're little people with our little arms, and we don't know how to do stuff, and yet we care intensely.
Well, I'm more of an idea guy,
Yeah, right. But, we care so much about one thing that nobody else... It's kind of this John Syracuse problem where it's there's these things where I care about this one thing so much more than anybody else. And the only way that I can accomplish it is through burlier people. So, for example, I don't think I'm precious about these things, but, for example, my wife, whom I love, shops so much more like a man than I do. She surprised us a few Christmases ago by getting us a new refrigerator. Yay, new refrigerator. She didn't wire cutter it. She didn't really measure stuff. It's good, but she roughly measured it and it would be fine. It arrived. Oh, God, I don't want to tell the story. Oh, God, that's triggering. The thing arrives, the burly guys bring it up. Doop-de-doop-de-doop. Living in the house from 1928, which has 2 electric outlets in the house. And so they bring it up, they put it in. First of all, turns out the refrigerator will not fit into the refrigerator area. It's about 1/4 of an inch too wide, which is just enough to make a burly guy go, "I can make this happen." Took it, side to side, up, down, up, down, up, down. It ain't going to go. He says, "Well, I guess we might as well plug it in." He plugs it in. There's an explosion. It isn't that the glass fuse blew. The entire house goes down. There is no power in the house. There's no fuse thing to switch. I have to call PG&E because we have blown out the box by plugging this thing in. So now, did I mention, by the way, it's 2 days before Christmas? Ding dong, ding dong. So now we have a refrigerator that doesn't fit into the fridge hole, plugged into a plug that blew the entire house. We have no electricity in the house. On top of it now, all of our Christmas food is sitting in the new refrigerator that won't fit in the food hole. And I started quivering. I was like, this is not how I wanted my life to be.
It is surprising. I mean, going through the move, I don't know. It was. I mean, I'm sort of exaggerating the actual stress of this. Like, whatever, everything. I'll figure it out. Stuff will work out. Worst case, I don't know. It's just none of this is that bad. But it is amazing when you're in that mode, when you're in that stressed out mode. Oh. What breaks your spirit? What's the little? It's like
you're so vulnerable.
Yeah, it's like a $14 frame that I got on Amazon in one day. Like, I cracked the glass moving, and I had to sit down and cry because it was just too. It was too much. It was like my frame.
My frame. My
my optical cable.
Well, I'll tell you the other good one. So, and here's the other.
There's one more part to this. The part that is after the first of the year. So we got the PG&E came out and they said, we don't know how you did this, but whatever that was, don't do that anymore. They fixed our house. So then after the first of the year, we've been living with a refrigerator that won't fit in the fridge hole. We call out a handyman, and the handyman comes out and he goes, "No problem. I can take care of this. I'm a man who is handy." I don't know if you've seen many shows about serial killers. I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of hesitation marks on stabbing. But now he went to our counter to make the fridge hole larger, and it basically is like a very strong toddler took a very sharp saw and kind of threw it at it for like 2 hours. And it's just nothing but hacky hesitation marks now. And every morning when I'm making my coffee now, I have to look at the handyman's hesitation marks. I live with that now.
Max refers to my apartment as a bachelor pad, and because I'm not a real adult and I don't really have real furniture or decorate, but this sounds, I'm kind of happy with my choices right now.
I don't want to change anything. You can't change anything because it always gets worse. No matter what you're living with, if you change it, it will get worse. And pretty soon you got a sleeve tattoo to cover up your whole arm, and that's your life. Oops. I guess I better make my arm black.
Well, this will sort of relate to the challenge that we have picked out for this week. But the other sort of tension in the move is I have to figure. All right, hang on. I have to figure out how to navigate this conversation without ending my relationship.
That's a good thing.
Okay, so Veronica, my partner, and I have very different values in terms of our relationship to the items in our life and like the things that we own. I am very John Syracuse about the whole matter. I try to be very intellectual and very dispassionate in my rational assessment of what I need and what I own. And I'm always scanning. I go into a room like a Cylon, and my eyes are scanning side to side. I'm like, is there anything here
Max
I can...
has a plan.
I do. I have a plan. What can I get rid of? There's got to be something I can purge from this room that's like not serving the design of my life right now. And so that's me. And, if it was up to me, the whole house, we'd live in like an Apple store. And Veronica has a very emotional relationship to things where all of the things that she's sort of selected to keep, which is everything, it's all tied to a memory of when she got it. So every little vending machine figurine is like, oh, the date that we went on where we got the plastic monkey out of the vending machine. I was, a sort of illustrative story is like I was carrying up this sort of end table that she has. It's just sort of we had it by our front door, and it was like we put our like backpacks on it when we came home from work in the last place. I was carrying this end table up, and I saw when I was carrying it up, there were these side pocket drawers on the end table, and which I didn't even know were there. Veronica's had this thing since undergrad, I think. And one of the pockets started to slide open, and all these rocks came pouring out, just like beach pebbles. And Veronica went, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, there's rocks in here? Why? Like the whole time there was illegal rocks in our house that I wasn't appraised of. And Veronica goes, oh no, my rocks.
My beautiful rocks.
The premise of this whole podcast is every week myself, Alex, or Merlin will issue a challenge to the group, and the group will have to do it and report back their findings, and we'll see what works and what doesn't. This week, because I didn't really have time to do a big challenge, I sort of tied something into the move, which was we all had to find something that was emotionally difficult to get rid of and get rid of it, and talk about what we got rid of. So For me, like I'll talk about one thing that I struggled with in this challenge and how it pertains to what we're talking about. So I think almost every nerd has a box of cords in their house. I have a Tupperware. I have a very modestly sized, like not much bigger in a footprint than like a MacBook Pro, sort of Rubbermaid bin full of cables, and every cable is there. It is not a Rat King. Every cable is individually looped and banded, and I know exactly what they do. So it's a very tidy, organized box of cables. However, I ultimately got rid of the box of cables, and that was kind of a difficult thing because I was like, I don't really want to have this box of cables. It kind of stresses me out of like, do I need all this stuff or whatever? And what I did was I wound up bringing some of it to the office and like I wound up giving stuff away to people, because the other thing that was in the box of cables was like all of my old fitness trackers that I had before the Apple Watch. Right. And it's like, well, do I really need, it's like, well, what if I want to use the Jawbone Up again?
Right. Sure.
But at the time it's like, well, I paid, I don't know, whatever, $120 for that thing. And I really enjoyed it for a year when I used it. But realistically, I'm never going back from the Apple Watch if I continue to wear a fitness tracker on my wrist, it'll be the Apple Watch. So I gave the Jawbone Up away, and that was sort of an emotional, like, I also feel like maybe I'm like giving up some sort of like DIY geek cred by not having the box of connectors and cables in my office anymore. But on the other hand, I live within walking distance of an Apple store and a Best Buy. So like, really, how much do I need the box of cables versus how much do I want the empty space on my shelf, which is its own merit. But that argument that I'm having internally, it's like, do you see how it relates to the same thing of like, it's like, well, how can I really explain the value of empty space on a shelf versus the value of having all the cables that are right there? I mean, it's very hard.
And it's a little bit like trying to prove a negative. I mean, I see both sides of it, because there's this one. I have so many thoughts on this, but one of them is there is this something we possibly maybe inherited, like maybe I inherited from my grandparents and maybe to an extent my parents, which is like, if something is still potentially useful, why would you throw it away? So now in the modern parlance now is to say donate it. Yeah, because Goodwill could really use some 30-pin connectors. I'm sure
there's a lot of homeless people that really need my Jawbone Up.
Sure, you can make a little igloo out of jawbones. That'd be a nice place to live. No, that's the thing. Is like, see, when I talk about this stuff, I very specifically use the phrase "throw away." Now, I mean, to me, that's a little bit like Gmail and the idea of what is archive versus delete. I don't care. Whatever gets it out of your house is fine. But my concern is that a lot of people, because they keep adding these other verbs about donating or recycling or all of these things, I'm not saying go be a monster and waste things, but like, I think as soon as you get anywhere but throw away, your brain flips and you go into that 1935 mode of privation, where you go, it's going to kill me if on Christmas Day I can't run this dingus because I don't have this cable or this power supply. For me, it's power supplies. I have power supplies, little bricks. I have no idea. Most of them are the same. Increasingly they're all the same, whatever, 12 watt, whatever they are, adapter. But, I have these things where I'm like, I can't throw it away. Why can't you throw it away? Because obviously it's for something. What's it for? I don't know. Well, then you should throw it away. But see, not knowing what it's for means now I got a brick if I can't have my stupid power thing for it. But you're saying like, how do you rationally say, like, what is the value of not having something here? It's very hard to articulate because you just sound tightly wound.
And you're right that if you follow the power brick logic to its natural conclusion, I really do think you wind up saving the cat poo in the corner. Yeah. Because that is where it leads you, is like, well, I must save you become like a memento guy. You're like, I have to remember it all. Like I have to consume everything and have it all always, or it all loses meaning. But most people don't get that far. So everyone does some sort of math of like, well, I'd rather the opportunity cost of having something is that you can't have something else in its place, right? I mean, there's only so much room in your house. So everyone does this calculus some way of, they're like, well, it's not worth the space it's taking up, so it's time to get rid of it. But I find it very difficult within maybe just within the framework of like contemporary American sort of values and materialism to express the psychological benefit of walking into a tidy room with very little in it. But I will say, and I'll cop to this, like, I feel great. I feel so much better. I write better. I think better. I feel better if I go into a clean, organized room with all of my stuff where it's supposed to be. So I don't know. Maybe that's vain. Maybe that makes me weak as a writer, that I need my precious little requirements to be able to sit down and write. I mean, I don't know, but I can't deny that I'm more at peace and less stressed out, and I feel better and I do better work, and everything that you could say. I profit psychologically from being in a simple, clean room where my focus isn't being pulled in a lot of different directions.
I mean, I feel like this is super normal, and every object you have in your house and everything that is just in your line of sight is something else you could be doing instead of the thing you're focusing on. So, even if it's just the weird wine glasses, it pulls your brain into, oh yeah, that's the thing the person made in Vermont or whatever. Or then you start thinking, oh wow, those don't match and they're terrible. And maybe that's part of the vanity, but just I don't know, just thinking about in college, and maybe it's different when you have really constrained space, but it was if my desk is not completely clean and everything is not charged and put away, that is something I could be doing instead of writing a paper.
But here's the thing with constrained space is every time I've ever moved in my life, starting with college, I moved into a progressively bigger room. There's always more space. And when I remember when I went into my first dorm room, which is now the size of my bathroom at the house, right? It's it was just a tiny, shitty little dorm room. I was this is immense. The world is at my fingers. I could own anything. I could have a whole table that's a spool of cable from the street. Anything could go in the storm. Anything could go in the storm room. I could put up the picture of the naked ladies with the Pink Floyd albums painted on their backs.
I don't know. It's also thinking about not just the purpose of objects, but the purpose of where those objects live. You have a space for fancy toilet paper now where in a dorm room there was just a corner for toilet paper to sit. Or maybe that was just my dorm room.
Yeah, my only point is that I think at least in American materialist culture, people are basically like goldfish, and that they will expand to the size of their bowl.
Well, I come at this from the standpoint, I sent you a photo of, I'd love to talk about this. Well, I wouldn't love to talk about it, but I sent you a photo of one of my office cleanouts, which we should circle back to. But I am a pack rat, and I am aware of these tendencies in myself. And forgive me for anybody who's ever heard another podcast I've done, but I read a book a few years ago called It's All Too Much by this guy who hosts a cable TV show about making over houses. And I don't care if it was ghostwritten. I don't care if it's perfect for you. It is the first book about clutter in life that really hit me between the eyes. It's not a philosophical treatise. It's not Marie Kondominium. It's not any of those kinds of things. This is a straight between the eyes, let's examine why you have this particular irrational series of attachments to things in your life. And spoiler alert, it's because there's something unresolved in your relationship with other people that causes you to have these things. And the single best chapter in this book, I'll be quick about this, but the best chapter in this book, the essential chapter in this book is where he goes through all of the classic reasons why people keep stuff. And these include, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's things like, this might be really valuable. Somebody who I love in my family or my friends might want this someday. This is a precious memory that has been given to me by somebody else in my family, and I would be a monster to throw this thing away. And basically, he goes through and blow by blow, he tears each one of these down. Okay, well, you've got your dad's wedding tuxedo, but it's in a hefty bag in your garage, and so that you're keeping that because why? Where is the honor in that? You keep every drawing that your kid has ever done. And, maybe your refrigerator is now unusable because there's so many of these. And then when you got to finally make the refrigerator usable, you throw them all in a box and you never look at them again. Well, think about that. All of those things, that's because you feel like if you get rid of that thing, possibly you feel like you are being disloyal to that person or unloving to that person's memory or something. But that is not the person. That drawing is not the kid. That tuxedo is not your dad. And the thing is, if it is valuable, then why is it in a hefty bag? The truth is, it is not about that object. It is about your mental block about being able to deal with that particular relationship in general in specific, or with change in general. So my feeling is when a lot of people come up with these reasons why they do things, it's ultimately a way to say, there's this stuff over here, stuff in the very biggest sense of the word, that I just don't want to deal with, and I have my reasons. You think it's valuable? Go on eBay. Find out what your cracked Cool Cat glass is really worth. All your comic books from the 1990s. Are you really sure? You think somebody's really, really going to want those? So I find it useful to try and take a rational approach to that. And the times that we have done major purges in our house or in our office, it has been incredibly freeing, and I become Max Temkin for 2 weeks because suddenly we have areas of the house that we were just dead to that are now usable for living. And it is transformative, but it takes a very somewhat courageous mental leap to be willing to delve into all of the dark bags of your memories before you know what I mean? Like to basically be okay with going into all of these boxes in your life, metaphorical and real, that you don't really want to have to think about or deal with. I think that's why people push back.
Have you ever employed the strategy, which I think it comes from that book, of let's say you have things that you're maybe on the bubble about, or you feel that
put it in a box.
Yeah, so you put it in a box and you label the
Seal
box
it
with a date and you put it in the basement. And if you write on it discard in 2 years, right? And then when the 2 years come up, if you haven't opened the tape on the box to take anything out of it because you needed it, you're clear to toss the box.
I've done it. You might have gotten that idea from me. I think I wrote about that on 43 Folders, talked about it on Back to Work. I think I first heard about it from, I want to say, like Martha Stewart. It's a very interesting idea that is extremely difficult to do with one box. I find that when I'm under pressure to have to get rid of lots of stuff, like because of a move or because of some kind of thing that's suddenly come up, maybe there's water damage somewhere or impending, you know what I mean? Those kinds of emergency situations give me, maybe because of my ADD, gives me a sense of clarity that allows me to become much more ruthless about, in my case, it's sometimes boxes that I haven't opened that I've moved from house to house for something like 30 years and never even looked at.
I'm sorry that I Merlin-splained that to you.
No.
You know, Merlin, the thing about writing is you just got to sit down and make the clacky noise.
So wait a minute. You sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's
what, are you on a keyboard?
It's a verb, not a noun.
God, the self-hate that I walk around with, it's...
No, those things were great. Those are good. See, I just gave you advice that I got from you.
It does work, but you know what it is, man? You just go buy some fucking contractor bags. You cannot, I'll quote myself again, you can't think in teaspoons, you got to think in shovels. Like, that's the thing. It's like, if you're holding each little object and turning it around in your hand, like, you'll lose your mind. But then, water damage is important. Like, one time I had a box full of photos that basically were getting dripped on for a year and I didn't know it. And they became one Uber photo, like this big block of photo. And it's pretty much every photo of my young adult life is now basically this rat king of photography that I can't do anything with. And in some ways, it was oddly comforting. In a weird, dumb way, I felt like I got a pass. It was like, well, I guess I could keep this. I could put this on display and be sad about it. But I was like, that's, if I treasured that, it would not have been in an area where it could be damaged by water. Bad on me.
Let me talk about the things I got rid of, and I'm dying to know what you guys got rid of. So I had to cheat a little bit on this challenge because I truly do not have a lot of like things that I can put in a garbage bag and throw out. Like, I am very, very lean. Like, I take up very little closet space. I don't have clothes I can get rid of. I don't have kitchen utensils I can get rid of. Like, I'm an active purger. I am always scanning, doing my Cylon scan, throwing things out. So there wasn't like there was no like low hanging, like I'll just get rid of this stuff or whatever. So I picked 3 areas where I downsized or changed habits to reduce stuff. And I hope you guys count it as I hope I successfully completed my own challenge here.
Oh my God, you did so much more than I did.
Okay, so number one.
Oh my God.
Number one, the bedside. In my previous place, I had the right next to my headboard on the bedside, I had 2 daisy-chained power strips, and I used every single outlet, and it became the hub of all the electronics in the house. So my phone, my iPad, my Kindle, my watch, everything plugged in right by the bed. And I was like, well, that's where I want it because I'm like lie in bed and read my iPad, right?
Yeah.
This was, for a lot of reasons, it was a bad habit, and it was also a very huge jumble of power bricks and cords. I had like a sleep tracker back there, and any fucking dingus that I bought on Kickstarter was plugged in back there. All my fitness trackers and all that kind of bullshit that you have in your house. In the new place, I have reduced to 2 things plugged in. I have it's kind of one item, which is I got the Studio Neat Apple Watch and iPhone dock, which is beautiful.
That's on my bedside stand right now.
And that's it. I have nothing else plugged in by my bedside.
Wow.
So
you don't have a lamp?
No. There's lights in the room, but I don't.
How do you listen to NPR?
On my iPhone. What do you mean?
God, you millenniums. Wow.
Yeah. No clock.
Oh, that must have felt so freeing.
It is. It's and I don't know. The bedroom is very minimalist. We're kind of deciding everything that goes in, and the bedroom is my design, and it's very me. It's very looks like an Apple store. There's very little in there, and it really looks nice with like very little on the bedside.
Let's make love on this large, clean table.
Looks cool. Looks nice. I don't know. It looks great.
I think you just made a Tina noise.
All right. This is all going to be edited out. So that's number one. Now, I didn't get rid of every single item that was by the bedside. I mean, my Kindle I still need to keep, but I've relocated including the iPad and everything else, as much as possible into other places where they're more at home. So like the iPad charges by my desk and the Kindle charges in the library, things like that. So, okay, so that's number one. Number two, I did get rid of my box of cords, and I just basically wholesale threw it out. And I was like, listen, all of these, I gave a ton of stuff away, tons of stuff at the office, and anything else I just threw out. So any loose power bricks that I was saving, it's all gone. So far, I set up the new house, and I didn't really need any of that stuff, so I think I did a nice job. And then number three, this was the part that spoke to doing something that was emotionally difficult. So I have had, for as long as I've had a job, I've had a desk at home that has an Apple Cinema display and an Apple wireless mouse and an Apple keyboard and some little other office supplies, and it mirrors almost exactly my desk at work. So I have the same pad of paper and the same pens in the same jar in the same place on the same desk, and I have it's like a good muscle memory. It's like when I'm sitting down working, I kind of know where everything is, and I use the same keyboard and mouse, and like there's like a fluency of like I can work at home, work at office, and I'm not doing any I'm not like burning cycles on like trying to find stuff, right? Like it's the same setup in both places.
Right, totally sensible.
So I have, but this year, however, so first of all, I work at home less and less. I really am making a concerted effort to leave my work at the office and work, even if I have to work late, I work at the office and home is for other things. And so that's number one. Number two is I built a gaming PC this year. For the first time in my adult life, I own a gaming PC. And, that doesn't work with the Cinema display. It doesn't work with the Apple mouse and keyboard. So it necessitates that I have a tower, a monitor, another mouse, another keyboard. And I set that up all on my desk, and I've been holding on to, even though I don't really use it anymore, the Cinema display, the mouse, the keyboard, my precious little desk workspace. Because to me, there's something comforting of like, well, if an emergency happens at 2 a.m, I still have all my work stuff, and I could like set it up like Apollo 13. I can reconstruct my like work scene. It's like, it's like you have only these supplies.
We need to make this fit into that.
Yeah, tear the pages out of the binder to make the mouse pad. But it's like, anyway, so I don't know what that fantasy was, but I did get rid of that stuff. So I gave some of it to Veronica, and some of it I brought into work and gave away, but yeah, I don't have the work setup anymore, and that is a I don't know, it's a small change, but it's that was emotional. That was an emotional thing for me of like, I'm really kind of giving up some control, some illusion of control here, that I don't have an exact mirror of my workspace in my home.
I just keep thinking of this thing when you were describing. First of all, congratulations. That's really good. I think of this situation that feels like a metaphor for life or something, which is, you get an area like your area, but everybody's got these areas. Even if you're tidy, unless you like are one of those cable people who's really good about like you assiduously organize every single thing in your entertainment area, your computer area. Maybe I'm alone in this. I don't want to sound defensive. Maybe I'm alone in this, but I will periodically go through and say, okay, let's start all over. And what I do is, because I realize it's becoming untenable and it's looking dangerous and stupid. And here's the thing that I do is I will go to, this is, ever since I got my iMac, I've been way better about this because I have an iMac with, I think it's called a dock. this OWC thing, where you basically have this one way that everything gets into the computer, and it's gotten a lot easier. But I used to have this, like, it looked like somebody threw a giant Rubbermaid tub of some kinds of cords under my desk, and I would just scoot my feet to kind of move them away. It would get bad. And here's what I would do. Total scorched earth. I would unplug literally everything. Every device would be unplugged from every other device until I had this giant thing of cords that I would just grab and take over to an area. I'd take every device, I'd dust it off. I'd say, do I still use this? No, I don't still use this. I don't even use this thing anymore. And then the fun part was to go through the pile of cords. And I don't know if you all have had this experience, but I needed maybe somewhere between half and a fifth of what was actually in that tangle of cords. When I was done and pulled out the cords I needed to act, the cables that I needed to do the thing that I was doing, I had more cables in the unused pile than the used pile. And yet that was what I lived with for years. Do you know what I'm saying? That feels important. That feels significant to me as a way of thinking about life, because I wonder how many of those kinds of cables exist in my life writ large. And then once you're done, you're like, this is a thing that I haven't used. I have not had the thing that this is for in forever. And it's weirdly freeing and weirdly humbling. And I'm going to do it when I get home, because our credenza is a mess. They sent me an Eero, so I tested out the Eero, and like what started out as my beautifully organized credenza for the TV area, it now looks like a family of cables has had like bunny babies, and they're all just shooting out of the front now. I can't even close it. There's like blinking blue lights I have to see now because it's so jammed with all these cables pouring out, and I'm covered with shame.
Let's say there's somebody who subscribed to Macworld magazine since 2000. When did I start college? 2010. How many pounds worth of paper is that?
Wow. Well, they did get thinner, and that was the problem.
They did. The paper got shittier. Oh, and well, I guess also some issues of like Mac Life. I think that one's still around, and like I had various airports.
Eventually, it was like getting a Parade magazine with enterprise software ads.
Yeah.
I cannot believe both of you are print subscribers to Macworld. I don't even think I've ever seen a paper Macworld.
Well, they don't exist anymore.
I hadn't subscribed for years. It got very expensive, and it wasn't actually that useful to me. But I would buy the ones where I had an article in it or something like that. But I've saved things. I was like that with like Wired. I had Wired from the beginning and things like that. Or, Might magazine. I'd have like, these like things that weren't around anymore that felt important. That's a lot of pounds of paper, Alex.
Yeah. 256 to
what?
Because
that's an iPhone 7 worth of memory in gigabytes.
That's so true. Oh my God. For some reason, I had been keeping all of my old Apple product boxes that were empty, and I don't know why. So those were all gone. And my list is very boring, and most of it, like the emotional thing for me was getting rid of all of these Macworld issues. But like looking through all of them, I tried not to, but it was like it was just advertisements for.
But Alex, what will Apple unveil at WWDC 2011? I mean, it could be anything.
And I unsubscribed like 3 years ago. I don't know why I had all of these, as well as a lot of souvenir popcorn cups from Disney World. I don't know why we brought those home. And like flyers from there was some stuff like there's stuff from college, like posters from film festivals I was in, or like little trinkets like that, where I was like, this is all crumpled up and shitty, and I can just scan this, and now I have, my paper rat's nest in a folder on Dropbox, and
Then I never look at it.
I will never look at it, but it gives me some comfort. The one thing that it was, and I have given away all of or sold all of my Apple products that aren't like the most recent ones.
Wow.
Yeah, that was.
You can't take a photo of all your old iPhones.
I know. Well, but that's the thing. There's people with better cameras and better looking newer ones that have that. Like I was looking, the main reason I had my old 3G was to see, can I handle the scratches, the shiny scratches on the back of the phone? And yes, I can.
Bro, I have a question. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you're recording in your office, not to be creepy.
Yes.
Okay, if you look to your right, what is the situation with LaCroix cans right now?
Oh, okay. Well, turns out, first of all, LaCroix is for hipsters. I am a Safeway refreshing.
Okay, excuse me.
I have right now on my desk, I have 2 that I'm working on and 3 that are empty because I cleaned up yesterday and filled a 24-can case with the ones that were on my desk.
Good for you.
We should talk about my office.
Dude.
There were a lot of cans there. I mean, that was one of the most striking details of the office. There was a lot of cans going on in there when I was there.
I'm also curious. Are you sitting on the same chair that we saw in this photo that you sent us?
Oh, the one that's falling apart
Yeah.
a little bit? See, I should never send people photos because people zoom in.
Oh no! I'm zoomed in now, and I see on your Mac Pro there is a sticker of what appears to be an overweight ratatouille rat. Maybe I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's probably a meal.
And your desk is a table.
Now, Merlin, I noticed that if I zoom into this picture, I can see that you are using the low throughput cable on your computer. Are you aware of the fact that?
So, let's set aside the squalor in which you quote unquote work. Let's focus on your iPhone's home screen. Why would you have this particular message around?
I help a lot of people with their home
Wow,
screen.
Merlin, your battery level is really stressing me out. Merlin, charge your phone.
Oh my god,
That's an original comment
You know what?
that I thought of to tweet.
I have deliberately never done this because I know how much it's going to fuck you up. But I'm going to send you my home screen, and then you can just deal with it. Because here's the thing, I don't think about it. I don't think about it at all.
Every day, like it's those fucking red dots. I don't know how Apple is still.
Oh
like,
my fucking god!
Wait, I haven't seen it. Oh no, shit.
I have like, and you don't even see the other pages where I got like 40.
How? Oh my god!
I got like 40 folders called stuff.
This is
What? This makes total sense.
how do you know which? How do you know which notes app? This is like Mike. If you've ever seen Mike Hurley's home screen, Mike has 8 reminders apps on his, and alarm apps on his home screen.
But he has a system. He can walk you through.
Yeah, he has to. He sets a due reminder to update OmniFocus to do the review on the project of his drafts folder. But Merlin, how do you know which text editor? Open up. Let's say you need to buy some more Safeway sparkling water seltzer. Which
yeah. I need all of these.
which app do you open up to put that you need more seltzer in? Or do you just open drafts and then you send it to one of these other 17 text editors?
The one called Home. In Home, you'll see my Instacart app, so I can request it right from there. See, now it's not that this makes sense or doesn't make sense to me. This just seems normal, and to you guys, this seems like a perplexing.
Reader is
home
in
screen.
Home. Why? It's right by Insta.
Oh, that's apps that go on the homepage.
Oh.
I knew this was going to kill me.
Yeah, okay, I'll say one of my only. I'm going to stop picking on Merlin now, but here's my only other observation about this.
I'm going to send you the last
Merlin,
page.
you've selected. Here's the thing that's killing me about this. You've selected a black background. There's no image on the background of your iPhone, which presumably you did. I mean, the people who do that, like I've done this before, and the idea is,
Yeah, it's because I'm organized.
it's because it's a readability thing, right? It's that you don't want. It's that you don't want like an image to distract you from what's going on phones. So you can just get down to brass tacks and use the functionality of the phone. But then on top of this black background, it's like gazing into the eye of madness. It's just a swirling chaos of folders and apps. Merlin, I have to say you have some of the worst taste in iPhone games.
To have Monument Valley and Uno in the same folder.
It's an insult.
You guys like Uno?
Wait. How many of these podcast apps do you listen to podcasts in? There are 6 podcast apps on your phone that I can see.
Let's go look. Well, see, it's hard to organize these things. So, when I see things, what I do is sometimes what I'll do is when I'm doing some maintenance, I'll move things out of my little dock area and I'll put a folder down there and I'll just swipe through and I say, yeah, this thing could belong in there. It's something I just do to pass the time sometimes. But you can see my daughter likes games. So I try to put the games in folders. And the folders are usually called games.
You can see that.
You see 4 folders here called games.
This is chaos. This is total fucking chaos.
I feel like you can't. Well, you use the creepy beta fish stock background on your iPhone, and I don't understand. You're looking at a fish's scale all day.
No, I know I'm on the blue sand or whatever the new default is.
It's
a fish?
That is a beta fish.
Oh, I don't know.
No, I've got a black background.
No, Alex is talking about my phone.
It's very upsetting to look at.
I just decided, so who is it? There's some Mac podcaster who talks about going kit. You use that comes with, you try and embrace what comes with the Mac.
Dan Benjamin does that.
So Dan talks about this, and I've thought this was a very good idea, and it really spoke to me, which is Dan thinks about, there is a temptation to go and you get a new phone, you get a new Mac, and you customize everything, and you wipe away all the settings, and you put it exactly how you like it, and you install your third-party apps, and you replace everything. And what Dan started talking about is like, well, actually, it would be a lot simpler and less maintenance if you sort of embraced the kit stuff that came with the phone to the greatest extent possible. And I'm really into that. Like, it feels less. It feels. How do I put it? It's like less fiddly, and the whole phone is more fungible.
It sure has gotten more. I mean, like with the like Notes in particular makes that a much more attractive thing. There's so much that Notes can do. That it really is a category killer in some ways. If you don't need a lot of the nerdy stuff in editorial or drafts, like Notes, I mean, the fact that you can send stuff to Notes from anywhere is huge.
I think so. Did Notes implement sharing now? Like you can have a shared note.
It's so good.
So I think that will kill. I've been on Simple Note since you talked about Simple Note in 2009 on the Mac. On David Sparks' podcast,
wow.
And on Mac, what's that called?
Mac Power Users.
That's it. Yep. Katie Floyd and David Sparks' podcast, and you talked about Simple Note, and I used it ever since, and it changed my life. I mean, back then,
you still use it?
It's the only Notes app on my phone, and but you have to remember, like back then. There was a couple of things that I liked about it. So back then, there was no round trip syncing of Notes except for Simple Note.
It was the first. It was absolutely, as far as I know, it was absolutely the first one to do that.
Yep, and it just worked. It just worked. It worked really well. It synced on Dropbox back in the day, so you also had access to the text files, and you could use like the other one on the Mac that people like better. NVAlt, yeah, or whatever you wanted on the Mac, really. But I took, you talked about your whole text file system where you have like runx and you have different tags to categorize stuff. And I've never changed. I set it up in college. I trained myself to use it religiously, and I've never changed. I never went to Apple Notes. I never switched to another. I never got into drafts because I don't need drafts. I don't have 50 things to do with Notes. I have one thing to do with Notes, which is they go in Simple Note, and it'll be a big switching cost for me to phase out Simple Note and migrate the critical notes over to Apple Notes. But I should probably do it because I frankly trust Apple's backup more than Simple Note's backup.
I mean, you can still sync with, like, that's how I still use Simple Note too, but have it sync with Dropbox.
I don't think you can anymore.
I feel like I was like grandfathered in. And this is another thing that Merlin, I feel like you just sort of influenced my entire adult life because I still have that Dropbox folder called Elements because that was actually the first.
That's still what mine is called.
Because that's what I used, and that's where all of my text files live.
Yeah, it's like, when I think back of it too, it's not just that I like picked up that you tagged it runx and like copied it, but it was also like it was just the first time in my life where I heard someone talking about, actually there is, if you're really thoughtful and considerate about it, there's a way for this thing to become a supplement to your brain. Like if you write everything down, and don't try to remember like timers and reminders in your head, you can actually have a better life. Like, so I really needed someone to make that connection for me of like what the technology can do on a personal level, and I think the world is caught up, and everybody is thinking about that now.
Are you just saying nice things because you feel bad for how awful my iPhone screen is?
Yeah, no, seriously, that made a big deal. That no one, I mean, yeah, that whole idea you introduced, it's a whole way of thinking to me, and it's really sorely disappointing to see how poorly you've implemented this in your own life.
Yeah, what's weird is that it doesn't bother me. That's the worst part. It's like that is the cat poop in the corner, is that like I don't see what's wrong with it.
I could understand if, like, I use Spotlight to find most things on my phone.
That's what I do. Yeah.
But how do you know what things? Right? And this might be just a me thing, but my iPhone 6 it had to be replaced 6 times under warranty because I kept the files. The root file was corrupted, and they're like, "Well, you got too many apps," and I'm like, "What does that even?"
How many apps does everyone have on their phone? Let's do a look. God, this is we've lost our listeners. Goodbye, everyone.
407.
154.
87. There's probably a couple that could go. I have a few on here that are
407. And I use like 6.
And you've talked about this on your other program, and you restore from iCloud. How does your phone just not explode?
My God! Did you get a 7 already? Set it up as a new phone. Liberate yourself from the bondage of.
I need all this stuff. I might need it someday.
Oh boy! I smell a challenge coming.
Merlin, you have not even talked about what you have thrown away.
Well, this week has been hectic because, just without going into too much, that I suddenly I got dad duty because of some family stuff, and so I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to. I had very ambitious ideas, but then in the time that I had, I started wandering around the house, and I was just going dead. I couldn't figure it out, and I was trying to be clever about it, and I realized, as I've sort of revealed already, that one of my biggest hangups, like stuff like clothes, like I don't care. Just throw it all out. I don't care.
Merlin, I had to interrupt you, but I just see I was thinking about your position here, and I do see I'm as I mentioned, I'm kind of an idea guy, and I do see a big synergy opportunity here where you could really knock out 2 birds with one stone, which is you're trying to find something emotionally important to get rid of, and you're on dad duty all week. I mean, did you not do this math?
I was like, I'm not going to make that joke.
Were you saying I should just get rid of my kid?
Yeah,
would I donate her or recycle her, or how would I do that?
Well, I don't know. There's a program. I assume there's a program.
Is it like Cars for Kids?
Well, you get the new model.
So like I could go to WBEZ. I donate it. I get a write off. And
that's right. And Click and Clack are like, give us your kid.
You're in San Francisco. Just look at a nice gay couple who's composting their stuff and be like, yeah, you know what you could use.
Excuse me. Just leave it right on the curb. Somebody will get it. We get areas like the area where the cat was hiding, and like in the closet. And I need to deal with lots of old kid stuff. And my daughter gets very attached to objects, and my wife is not attached to it, and she would like the house to be easier to deal with. And so sometimes I discover this, she will do some stealth removals, and I don't say anything because I know it's the right thing to do, but I need to deal with my volume of nearly meaningless kid memory stuff because I'm utterly fraught and overwhelmed with the idea that my child is growing up so fast, and it completely freaks me out every day and sends me down a shame and anxiety spiral I can't begin to explain. So that's what I've got to deal with. So, but I made a beachhead today, which is, the kind of shit that kids get in bags at birthday parties. You get a gift bag.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a lot of garbage. So I threw away her purple spider ring because she doesn't need it, and I needed to make a beachhead, so I threw that away. Fuck it.
All right, good start.
Now I got to go through all the rocks. My rocks. Now, see, what I do is I put that in one of those little glass like pill bags. You get those little pill bags from Walgreens. They're the best. They're good for so many things. You can stash cash in there. You can put pebbles in there, small things, SIM card. And you always write on the bag with a Sharpie. That's a good idea. But I have a lot of those where it's like, Ellie found this at the beach with AJ, 2009. It's like, all the undifferentiated rocks.
Do you feel, just to like connect this, so I don't have the kid thing, so I have a hard time understanding the emotional cost of that. But do you feel, just to connect this to what we were talking to before, that there's some cost of having all the stuff as this way of holding on, where you miss what's happening now?
Well, the first part I totally agree with. I don't know if we're missing too much now because there's always more things we can collect. But, it's an affliction that I know I have to deal with. And I was trying to talk about schizophrenia with my kid the other day and and what it means in my understanding of it. And it seems to me like one of the most awful parts, all kinds of, kind of what we loosely call mental illness. One of the worst parts is knowing that something is wrong with you and being able to kind of observe yourself being wrong and that makes it worse. And the idea of having something like a voice in your head or uncertainty about reality, or that is, in extreme cases, I guess, we get schizophrenia. But I think that's a characteristic of a lot of what troubles us as people, is that we know rationally that what we're doing doesn't make any sense, and we can look at ourselves even from a remove, and you go, look at that sad bastard, wow, well, that's crazy, what are you doing? So I know that what I'm doing is not rational, but it doesn't make it any easier to do. So like last night, Mom's away. My daughter slept in our bed with me. And for some reason, she brought in a book that we used to read to her every night when she was about 2. And I don't know why I'm telling you this anecdote, except that in that case, I'm really glad we still got that little dumb board book around. But I can't take that pattern and apply it to everything. Not every book can be important. Importance requires curation and rationality. And that's the part that I struggle with. I don't think I'm missing out on anything. I'm pretty engaged. Mostly. Do you have, or does she have any plush or stuffed animal type thing that's like a sacred being to her, that if something happened, the world would just end? Like a Coochie Copy? No, she moves from one to the other. She's got a Pikachu she likes a lot right now. No, she moves around between 4 or 5. There's not one that is like the overriding all-time favorite stuffy. I just realized something. I don't know how I totally forgot this, but when my childhood bedroom has actually been turned into a scrapbook room by my mom. And she's like, do you want any of this? I'm like, no, just get rid of all of it. But then I had I woke up in the middle of the night with a panic attack and called her. I'm like, you didn't get rid of Cubby, did you? Which is my my bear that I since I was born. Oh, Cubby. It's a Precious Moments plush bear. And she's like, oh no, of course I didn't. Because she knows. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And I went home, and it's actually this bear is up on a shelf with another stuffed animal that his name is Beachmore. He's a large dolphin. Anyway, Beachmore, what a cute name. I'm just realizing now I have no idea what my attachment to that is. I only see this bear when I go home for holidays. I may be able to connect some dots here. Alex, could you describe for Merlin your grandmother's barn with the pigs, please? Ooh. I'd like to call a witness to the stand, Alex Cox. All right. Okay. So my family, it's a whole thing. The Polish family comes to America, doesn't have anything, and then slowly over 50 years acquires a lot of things, and they become wealthy and like to buy stuff. And then they need to buy places to put their stuff. Yep. Like 2 barns in rural Illinois. Wow. So my grandpa has a collection of both any pig-related items, because that's how he became independently wealthy or whatever, is by the acquisition of pigs. He was we have these 2 packing plants that are still duh. Okay, I'm sorry, Chicago. Yep, Chicago. Yeah, Chicago. Wait. I'm sorry, Alex. You've not adequately explained the collection of stuffed barns. So we go to this barn, and the doors come open, and it's a huge space. You can see, even though it's dark, it's a huge space. I'm trying to figure out how to set the scene here for our listeners. And Alex goes in and turns the lights on, and you're inside of a barn is a large building, big building, and all around the exterior of the barn, there are multiple shelves, rings of wall-mounted shelves going all the way up to the ceiling. And then in the middle, there's all these display cases, almost like you'd see in a retail store. Every square inch of this barn, from the floor to the ceiling, has nicely arranged on these shelves, dusted, cleaned, organized,
ceramic pigs.
Oh
Stuffed
my
pigs,
God, that's harrowing.
ceramic pigs, stuffed pigs, model pigs. There are some vintage tractors. There's a section that has vintage tractors. There are some pig tractor crossovers where there's like pigs on tractors. But it is. I had no idea that humanity had made so much pig apparel or items.
Yeah.
Thousands. You can't fit it all into your field of view.
This sounds like they're loved.
They have this like sort of John Roderick irrational thinking of like, I spend my whole life making this, and
Right.
these are the fruits of my labors, these tchotchkes, and he finally actually did sell his like real tractors at the age of 81. He was like, all right, I guess we don't need these anymore.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a little bit crazy.
Well, Roderick, he mentioned this thing, I've done a lot of estate sale shopping. I love going to estate sales to get, stuff for the, especially when I was younger and like when I was broke, like you get really nice stuff, honestly, at estate sales, but much better than a yard sale because it's like good stuff, right? That someone died and doesn't, it's getting sold off. It's not like just their garbage they're getting rid of. And, John Roderick has mentioned on his program that, there's something really... there's something especially grim and depressing and existentially sad about
I can't
going
go.
to an
I
estate
can't go to
sale.
one.
Because what you're seeing is that you're seeing the fruits of this person's labor over the course of their entire life, acquiring just the right set of things. They had just this silverware and just these china and just these plates and just these drinking glasses, and they assembled all the right items, and they had their whole life all designed, and they still died.
Ugh.
It's like they had all the right things and they didn't live forever.
It's the little things, like going through my grandmother's house when she died. It's all just the little things that obviously this is a can opener that somebody has kept for 30 years, or this is the bottle opener of your entire youth. It's really overwhelming. But in that case, I mean, my grandmother died and she's in the 80s. This is 1987. And we had to move fast. And there's just became this question of like, you start out going like, oh, grandpa's footstool. And you're like, okay, so who wants that in their house? And it's like, I don't know. Like, I'd love to have that and that, but like, where do you put all that? It's an American affliction.
It's a part of the way that stuff becomes part of your. It's the idea of items, of these external items as personality. It's consumption as self-improvement or consumption as politics. This is the psychosis that comes with it of like, well, it's like, well, these were grandpa's special things and we're dishonoring the man.
Do you think it's like that? I mean, how much, obviously there's some part of that. There's all kinds of strains of, weird thinking involved in that and tradition and handing things down. I mean, do you think it's peculiarly American to be this hung up about stuff?
I do. I mean, I hate to go to the obvious, but Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, and his whole praxis is that he has the best stuff and the most stuff, and he lives in a golden house and a golf course. It's like,
did I tell you my daughter quotes that all the time?
Oh, it's a fucking hilarious.
Donald Trump is a large man who lives in a golf course.
Yeah, he always knows what time it is. That's probably my favorite. It's such a useless thing. But anyway, but it is. I mean, that's the whole merit. It's like people are like, well, they're like, I don't agree with him on the issues, but he's a great businessman, right? You keep hearing that, and he's a shit businessman, but he's built this whole cult of that he had, and his taste is so bad. It's so bad. It frustrates me. He's so bourgeois.
Do you think about this a lot, Max?
Oh, well, we need to go down this whole thing, but
we don't. You're literally apoplectic.
I'm at a loss. It's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like if you are bourgeois and you have no taste, what you imagine the pleasures of being rich is that you can literally have like gold furniture. And Donald Trump has it.
He also keeps doing that okay thing with his right hand. Drives me crazy. Oh, that was weird. People get sniffy when they're taking stimulants. I bet he's taking Hitler pills.
Okay, we're good.